Welcome to the Abundance Effect, where we empower ambitious women with practical tools to live their most rich and fulfilling life in business and beyond. I'm your host, Larisa Makuch. Let's get started.
Have you ever caught yourself saying something like, I'm just not confident, terrible with money, I'll never be able to start a business, I'm not a good leader, or maybe you've even heard someone say, that's just one of my limiting beliefs. Now, if you're a high-achieving woman who's ever felt like you keep bumping into the same invisible walls, even though you're intelligent, you're capable, you've done a lot of work on yourself, this is for you. Because today, I want to challenge one of the most overused phrases in the world of personal growth and development. Limiting beliefs. It's not because they're not real. They absolutely are. But I think we've been talking about them all wrong, and a lot of people really have no idea what they actually are. So here's the lie. People act as though limiting beliefs just exist. It's kind of like you woke up one day believing you just weren't good enough, or that you were born believing that you'd never be successful. In truth, you were only born with two fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Everything else has been learned. Okay? So you're not just born with all these limiting beliefs. You learn them at some point. You'll never have a limiting belief about something you've never experienced or something you've never repeatedly observed and given meaning to. So think about that for a second. A newborn baby doesn't believe, I'm bad at public speaking. They cry out. They know how to do it. A 5-year-old doesn't think, I'm not CEO material. Let me tell you, when my son was 5, he was so good at delegating and asking for what he wanted. Nobody's born believing, I'm just terrible with money. All of those beliefs have to be learned. And if they're learned, they can be unlearned and relearned. I'm going to repeat that too. Anything you learn can be unlearned and relearned. Now that's a writer downer. Pen, paper, notepad, whatever you need, write that down. And think about that if you've never given that concept thought.
If this episode has you thinking, I may have a few old patterns running the show, Larisa invites you to join her free masterclass, Rewire Your Morning, Reinvent Your Life. In this 90-minute session, Larisa will show you how to use your mornings to interrupt hidden blocks, align your thoughts and habits, and build the identity that can sustain your next level of success. Save your seat through the link in the show notes.
So here's what actually happens. You have an experience, or you repeatedly observe something growing up. Maybe you watched your parents fight about money. Maybe a teacher embarrassed you in front of the class. Maybe you pitched an idea at work and someone just dismissed it. The experience itself isn't the belief. It's the meaning you give that experience. So here's the sequence. Experience, meaning, decision, belief, behavior. Okay, so let me repeat that. You first have an experience, you give it meaning, you make some sort of decision, you adopt a belief, and then the behavior happens after. That's the sequence. The belief is not the first domino. It's somewhere in the middle. So let's take public speaking, for example. I think so many people have this challenge or this fear. Imagine you're like 12 years old, you stand up in front of a class, and you forget your words. Like, most terrible thing ever at that age. A few kids laugh. You might leave the experience thinking, that was like super awkward. Or maybe you decide, I am just terrible at speaking in front of people. Well, flash forward 20 years and someone asks you to present at work and you immediately feel anxious, not because you actually know that you're going to fail, but your brain is still referencing a decision that you made about your 12-year-old self. The fascinating thing is the boardroom isn't reacting. Your past is. I see this all the time. And you've probably had some kind of experience like this or seen someone that's gone through something like this. Here's another example. Someone's new to business and they're like, I'm never going to be good at sales. It's like so scary and I don't want to be like one of those used car salesmen. Well, I think I have a limiting decision. Then I might ask, well, how many businesses have you built? How many offers have you actually made? And they might go, oh, none, a few. Well, that's not a limiting belief. That's uncertainty. That's fear. That's anticipation. You're making something up. You're imagining something in your mind that hasn't happened. You don't have the experience. You haven't done the work. And so there's another protocol for that. We call it anxiety protocol. Let's make something up about the future that hasn't happened yet. If you're making something up that you don't actually have the skills or background or experience with, that's not a limiting belief. That is just something you're making up. And those are two very different things. They might feel equally as serious, but it's important to know the difference. When you solve the right problem with the right solution, it can actually get solved. When you don't have the experience, you've got to go get the experience. You've just got to learn things. And fact is, you may not feel good. You may be sick to your stomach. You may not like it. But if you're determined to be good in business and profit is the first order of business, you might have to go out and make a sale. You might have to go out and ask. You might have to actually learn sales skills. So pick up your big girl panties, suck it up, buttercup, go out and learn the thing. If you don't know it and you're scared, it's not a limiting belief. You just don't know the thing. Go and figure it out. Now, when you're looking at a true limiting belief, something that you actually have had some kind of experience or background in and a reference point in, instead of going, oh my God, what's my limiting belief? You want to look at what actually caused you to decide that. When did you first make that decision? Because decisions can actually be revisited and decisions can be updated. A younger version of you that made the best decision with that information, that maturity, that life experience, that might be totally logical. Feeling like you can't public speak at 12 years old, that might have been a logical decision, but what does that have to do with you now at 30 with more experience? Nothing. Would you make that same decision today if you put in the work? Probably not. If you had more experience, probably not. You want to really start looking at the root cause of some of your limiting beliefs. Make sure that if you think something's a limiting belief or a limitation, you've actually had experience with it, right? Something you observed, something that you experienced. Otherwise, you're just making something up. And we will do another episode about anxiety protocol, and made up stuff about the future that has not yet happened. But when you're looking at limiting beliefs, they are real, no question about it. However, you're not broken. You're not doomed to think that way forever. Your brain has just been trying to protect you from using this old information. And neuroscience, it tells us that your brain is remarkably adaptable throughout your entire life, not just when you're a kiddo. This concept of adaptability, it's known as neuroplasticity. When you have new experiences, new evidence, a repeated practice, these things can literally reshape neural pathways over time. In other words, a belief was learned. It can be updated, not by pretending it wasn't there, but by understanding where it came from and giving yourself new evidence. I do limiting belief changes all the time with clients, and it can take as little as 5 minutes or less. And you don't even need to know all the details with some of the unconscious processes that we use. However, what you do know is you feel better, you walk out different, you hold your head taller, and you just shed all of this unnecessary stuff you've been holding onto. So limiting belief change can happen really, really quickly. It can be really gentle. It can be really straightforward. This does not have to be a struggle. However, limiting beliefs are things that you've had experience with. Limiting beliefs are things that you've observed and made decisions about. Okay, there's a reference point. Things you've made up do not qualify. And I want you to really know that difference for yourself. So ask yourself, what is one belief that you've been carrying that might actually be based on an old experience or an old decision that you made years ago? And if you had the opportunity to make that decision today with your wisdom, with your knowledge, with your experience, with your background, would you make that same decision? Check it out. Check it out. It's time to stop letting your old history dictate the rest of your story. And if you are looking for help with limiting belief shifts and you're like, I got a lot of these little limiting beliefs, they're kind of like the dust bunnies in my closet, reach out to myself and my team. We are happy to hop on a complimentary call to see if limiting belief shifts is something we can help you with. There will be a link in the description of this video because you never know. One conversation, one new perspective, it could be exactly what you're looking for. And where you used to treat these beliefs as though they're facts, you can shed them easily, effortlessly, quickly, and free yourself for a beautiful life that you dream and desire. So if you're feeling compelled and you want to deal with some of these limiting beliefs and don't want to spend decades doing it, reach out and book a call in the description of this video. And I will see you again next time on The Abundance Effect. Bye for now.